You're listening to Irish Radio Canada Home and Abroad. Many of the things that happen around Halloween have their origins in Ireland. We're going to hear about some interesting stuff today because there's a group of people in Ireland who go under the banner of GhostÉire. And it is a paranormal team based in Ireland, and they investigate historical haunted locations along with places that have never been investigated before using equipment with scientific emphasis and conducting old traditional experiments. And their objective is to find answers to the supernatural, to delve deep into specific detail, and to try numerous varied techniques in making contact. And I've made contact with Sinead Houlihan. She's on the normal side.
Yes, I was going to say I'm a ghost. I'm just a paranormal entity here.
Yeah. Sinead, welcome.
Welcome, thank you. Thanks for having me on. Yes, thank you, Austin.
While we are reaching across technology, and we're using technology to connect with each other.
Which is a lot more difficult at times than, delving into the paranormal, I have to say. Yeah.
Okay, tell me a bit about GhostÉire.
So it was set up back in 2009 by Anthony Kerrigan. And I hopped on board back in 2010. I was in college. I was doing a project for college about the paranormal in Ireland. And I clicked with the team and became more involved in it over the years. And I've stuck with it for the last 12 years. So we explore so many different locations around Ireland, whether it be jails, castles, lighthouses, underground caves, and we venture off into courthouses, everything. We've probably done it, and GhostÉire tends to we kind of like to mix it up every so often. So every investigation we have done, we do different experiments, or we craft our own different experiments as well, just to kind of keep everything kind of flavoursome and kind of reach out into the paranormal field a little bit further and kind of push ourselves and to see what can be found, I suppose. Yeah, using many senses. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
common sense.
So
yes.
we're going to zone in on a book that you've just published, Drowned Out Voices, and we'll come back to that. Seeing that you're saying 2009, this was initiated, and we're now in 12, 13 years later. The team at this stage, how many would be on the team?
We have a total at the moment, I'd say around 8 or 9. There's about 3 or 4 of us that are kind of like the centre team. We go to most of the investigations. The other people will come in and out, which is great because if one of us can't make it, there's always someone else there as well. So we have about 8 or 9 at the moment, yeah.
Now, you keep using the term investigations.
Yes.
And that's kind of very...
criminal investigation.
Kind of very...
Clinical, right? Yeah. You should say explorations more so. To be honest with you, it's more...
Yeah, but it's got that word, there's a ring to it, but it also has that curiosity. And the curiosity I have is that if you're going to investigate something, somebody probably has then knocked on your door and said, can you come and investigate? And where I'm going with that is that if you're around for 14 years, where's the money coming from? Like, are you guys a team like Ghostbusters? Are you for hire?
Yeah, are we for hire? Well, we don't make money off this. It's just for the passion and the love of exploring different ways of trying to tap into the other world, which is exciting itself.
Okay.
So there's no necessarily it's more of a passion hobby thing, but I wish it was a full-time job because it's just fascinating and it is very exciting.
Are you ever called upon mainstream investigators? And I'm thinking in terms of here, that there are cold cases, and I'm not a TV watcher, so I know you have all these kind of things, the cold cases or whatever, but are you ever called upon by what would be mainstream investigations?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, unfortunately not, but I think it'd be very interesting for the future. I know people are trying to steer away from the paranormal, but I think they should bring it back. But no, we haven't, in terms of trying to help the guards out or anything like that. Not it's an interesting, idea, and I has been brought up before, I know, in the paranormal field, but hopefully in the future that'd be more of a common thing, using talking boards and stuff like that, yeah.
So then would you have individuals who might reach out to you on the basis that they have unanswered family history questions and curiosities that might say, would you ever come and check this one out?
Personally, I haven't been asked, but I think Anthony has been asked a couple of times, so it's more of a private thing that way.
Yeah.
But personally, I haven't. I think there's a lot of fear around the paranormal, especially when you're using talking boards and stuff like that, which is only, or otherwise known as Ouija boards, but they're really just a mode of communication, like, calling someone on the phone or something like that. But a lot of people, due to mainstream media and horror movies and everything, think there's a demon present or somebody going to pop out, so they don't particularly want to know,
Right.
what's
Right.
going on that way, which is unfortunate, but I think it's changing, ever so slightly,
So Sinead, then, when you're ever out in company with friends, or if you're invited to dinner, there's always this thing that if you happen to have someone to dinner who is a psychiatrist or a psychologist, are they analysing you? Well,
yeah.
When you're there, do your friends kind of wonder, are you checking out the vibes?
Yeah, they have done in the past. They have done. You're checking out the vibes. Are you getting anything from this place? There's a place that I know you'd love, or you have to come over and see this. What about? Yeah, I would have got those questions over the years. But I think everybody has that kind of intuition themselves, just by being somewhere, just kind of to tap into something. If there is something there, or if there's not. It's more of a. It's not as spooky as it seems, I guess. Yeah.
Right. And have you ever been somewhere just in a normal environment? And when I say a normal environment, I mean like if you were to go down to the pub some night and be it, say, the Brazen Head, because it's an old pub, and you're there with your friends, and you pick up on vibes that they necessarily don't, or that have you ever come across where they're kind of sensing that there's a discomfort, but you're quite comfortable?
Yes, it happened numerous times. It still happens where people will start getting a bit spooked out or a bit vibe, but because if you're so used to it, and I've done so many investigations over the years that it becomes like second nature, and you just see it as like, you're having your breakfast. Oh, here I am doing some spooky experiments. So your fear factor, it drops. Like you don't, or you don't really have much fear at all. Even if I was in a room and say cupboards, this hasn't happened to me yet, but if cupboards started opening and closing by themselves, I would be very, very inquisitive and like, my God, this is amazing, this is really cool. What other people would be probably running. I'd be really psyched up and like, whoa, what is this? And let's ask them questions about other people that would have probably ran out of the house.
Yeah, and yet and one of the things I noticed that some of your dislikes are things like rats and predictability and cheese.
Yes.
But yet, some of the places you're going to, rats are probably an inherent part of it.
Don't tell me about it. Yeah, that is my worst fear, and the rest of the team members will probably chime in on this as well. I will be terrified of rats and I will be screaming. And we were just at Woodchester Mansion in the UK in Gloucestershire there 2 months ago. Huge mansion full of bats, great. It was a renowned haunted location, lots of spirits around the area. There was a little mouse in the building, and I ran, I screamed, and my heart was beating very, very quickly. So there you go. That's me and my phobia of mice and rats, which happen to be in these buildings, along with the bats, which I'm actually okay with. Surprisingly, so I actually enjoy bats, so it's fine.
So next I have to ask you, in a situation like that, has the other side ever been laughing at you?
Yeah, we do get, well, not really for that reason, but the other side and the other entities and stuff like that will be playful in a lot of ways, and they will probably slag you off, or just be mischievous, just general people are in this life. They'll keep their personality in the next life, and we'll be having a laugh at times, depending where we're at. Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little about the book that's just been put out there, Drowned Out Voices.
Yes.
And the concept behind it, Drowned Out Voices, first of all.
So the drowned out voices, just voices from the past, which are just forgotten. People who've lived here before. you live here, you have a bit of meaning in your life if you can, and then all of a sudden you're dead, and voices are gone, forgotten, and then that's it. But we kind of want to bring those voices back by when we're connected to spirits and different entities, just to give them a say, or so they're heard again, so they're not drowned out anymore. They actually are here with us, but it's just a matter of us tapping in. So doesn't mean like their voices, they're drowned out, but they're not really. Like, so we're trying to give them, a stage, I guess you could say, for them to speak. Yeah.
So then, are the voices that are there that can be heard? Are we all capable, when we eventually get to the other side, of having a voice, or is it stronger among those who may have had a traumatic passing?
Now, I don't know the entirety of this answer. It's always open to interpretation, but I believe that people who have something left to say, or have a message, or do have the capabilities to come back and say something. But however, if you are having a great life and you enjoyed it, and then you've tied up loose ends and you've died, I honestly think there is a way to communicate that way as well. And you just might need to hone it in on it a little bit better, because sometimes when we're on the talking board, it'll always be somebody who is in a bit distressed, or somebody who has a message, or but there's always other spirits wanting to come in. But sometimes one spirit will kind of take charge, so we'd have to get that spirit to take step back. Or then we would ask beckon other ones in that would like to just say anything. Yeah.
Okay.
So I do think that we do have capabilities.
So let's talk about equipment.
Yes.
So you're now listening to sounds that none of us can hear.
Yes.
In the normal world.
Yes.
And we have very sophisticated equipment in this day and age. So give us a walkthrough of, just in kind of somewhat high level, what do you do to try to tap in?
Well, initially we used old equipment, we use the manifestation board, we use a colour mood board. So we have these, these artistic dolls, they're kind of like wooden. So we put a different colour on those.
Oh, so these would be like the ones we see in the ad and the TV, the wooden kind of one that's joined together with string.
Yeah, similar to that. We would kind of paint it different colours.
Okay.
So each colour on its body would represent a feeling. So we would go on the manifestation board, with it's kind of like with using a glass, and whatever colour that will go to, it'll show us, or it'll also show what mood the spirit is in, or what mood they would like us to be in. We also use Enochian portal doorways, which is a little bit out there. So we've actually done that in the last couple of years as well. We use brainwave technology. It's EEG machine, where we put electrical nodes through her head, and it actually tests like gamma waves, delta waves, theta waves, just to see if we're in a meditative state, will the spirit be able to contact us more, or it'll actually just see if, how do I explain this in a more of like in layman's terms, just if we're kind of meditating, we're kind of relaxed, our heart is beating slower, is that a time where the spirit can actually come in and connect with us more, or does it connect with us more when we're kind of rapid heartbeat and our brain waves are kind of going a little bit faster? We use scrying, looking through mirrors. We obviously use the Ouija board. We do that numerous of times. We offer fire as well. I have a little bit of a list here on the left, because there's so much that we do use. We do, occupation cards as well. We use them to see what occupation the spirit used to have in this world, and we also use grid reference mapping. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say occupation cards and the doll, you've painted the doll, the colours,
yes.
Right? And with the occupation cards, have you created those and based on your knowledge of what occupations were, particularly in the past?
Yes, so there's an assortment of about 50 to 70 occupations in the past, and we put them around in a square, so with the glass in the middle. Yes. Okay,
and likewise, as I say, with I went and I looked up to see what mood things were, and some of the other the equipment that you have. So when, and it's that you explained then that you're trying to figure out, is it more effective if you're meditative or if you're agitated? Yeah. And have you been able to arrive at any results on that from your end?
I think that when you're in a more meditative state, it can, produce, you can tap into things a lot more. However, personally, I find when we're more in a heightened state and when there's a lot more energy going around, if we're singing, if we're humming together, you'll often hear things happening in the background, which I believe that, this is my belief now, someone on the team will have another perspective of it, but I believe that when we're in more of a heightened state, things will happen more readily. Right. Because you'll hear different groans or hisses in the room when we're just humming and you're like, whoa, what's that? Yeah. Which is very exciting when that happens. Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted there, and we were talking about some of the equipment that you use, and we were talking about I stopped you on the cards, on the occupation cards. So what else is there then?
Let me see what else we have. So we have grid reference mapping. So if we're in an area which is quite large, so there's so many rooms that we don't have enough time to investigate every single room in this place. We haven't a time limited period here. So we will get the grid reference mapping, which consists of different letters and numbers running perpendicular to each other. So we also, in relation to that, we have the Ouija board next to it, and what we'll do is we'll ask which is the most active room. It might go to A, B. So we put a little elastic band around the A, B on the grid reference mapping board, which has loads of these spikes popping out every little few centimeters. So we'll have a particular, using the elastic band on the grid reference mapping board, we will investigate those particular rooms that the spirit will tell us to investigate. So we have that as well. We also separate ourselves into coffins as well, and we ask the spirit, it's kind of like a makeshift coffin, and we'll put a lid on it. It's a perspective coffin that we bring with us, and we'll be in another room, someone's in another room, and we will ask the spirit on the board to affect the person in the coffin using the Ouija board, and so that's another thing we do. We also use maglev electronic things. Let me see, have a look at that. I have more here on the left. Obviously the fog machines and everything for effect, which is general. We do EMF meters and K2 meters, and the Frank's box. You probably I don't know if you are aware the Frank's box goes through this. We use that very, very rarely, but we do use that. Let us see.
Then you have the array. That was the.
Yes. It picks up different of the sound. So the camera array. Yes. Yeah. So what that does, if there's a sound in the room and it's not coming from one of us, we'll be able to distinguish that sound by using the camera array, seeing where that sound is coming from. It comes up in a little colour. It could come up behind us somewhere in the back of the room, so we'll know that it's not from us. So when we're reviewing the footage on the camera, we'll be like, oh, that's not Anthony or that's not Jennifer that made that noise. That noise is coming from behind you, if you can see that. So that's been very good.
Because my understanding of when I was looking at that was that you also had a series of microphones tuned at different frequencies.
Yes.
And that consequently the specific frequencies that could be identified you were able to associate, but that when you got into ultrasound and some other things that you were able to say, well, that we humans didn't make those sounds, that they are outside our spectrum.
Exactly, because it can go up to a certain amount, higher frequency that we can hear, which is very interesting. Yeah. And I just find it very fascinating that a lot of these sounds you won't pick up while you're there, but you'll be able to hear them afterwards, which always baffles me.
Right. Yeah. And again, because I remember I was in Connemara at the National Park, and when you mentioned bats, we went out. I was sat in on a lecture on native Irish bats. Yeah. And we went out afterwards with bat meters.
Oh yeah. Brilliant.
and the frequencies that they were set at, and of course the bats would go over and you wouldn't hear anything, but you'd hear it on the meter.
Yeah.
The different frequencies, that different.
It's just fascinating, isn't it? That our ear, like, it's not really trained, or, we don't have the capacity to hear these sounds, but you can with different things, as you say, with the bat meter, or whatever it's called, and even with the meters we're using, it's just, like, phenomenal that, there could be other things happening all the time, which is just brilliant, yeah.
And likewise with the spectrum, that some aspects of the light on the spectrum is not visible to the human eye.
Yes, yeah. So we're only seeing a certain amount, unless we put on different things in our eyes, and who knows if we could be opened up to another world altogether, yeah.
So, while I haven't had time to read the full book, I zoned in on the castle in Athlone, and the reason for that, as I lived close to it, I've been through it, I've met Mary, and I got a guided tour which we recorded and we shared with the listeners. So this is now a number of years back. So I was familiar with the rooms I was able to conjure up the imagery. And putting it in context, the castle in Athlone goes back to 1690s, as far as I recall. Yeah. So we're dealing with over 400 years ago.
Yes.
So you guys head down to Athlone. And one of the things I noticed, first of all, and this would be true of all your investigations, is you have to apply to whoever the owner is, be it the county council, Public Works, or whoever.
That's another story unto itself. Many times, yeah.
And I'm sure that process alone, you're coming up against, aside from coming up against bureaucracy, you're coming up against people who think, are these people really kind of for real?
Are they the full shilling? Yeah. Yeah, you do have that, but I think it's becoming a bit more to a little bit more lenient in people opening up a little bit in terms of, I know people are asking for funding, money, all that kind of stuff, but I think because we've been to so many places over the years, we just show them where we've been, and hopefully that will get us through. And Anthony, he's a great man for that, my friend on the team, so yeah.
Right.
He deals with all that, yeah.
So, how do you figure out or select or decide where you want to go?
So we would generally pick a county where, first and foremost, where we haven't been before. We've been to many counties now, I think nearly all of them, but then within that county we would try and kind of hone in on some building that maybe hasn't been done before, is other investigators haven't really delved into it too much, could be just a hole in the ground, that kind of thing. And it doesn't necessarily have to be haunted or renowned haunted area, but it has to have a little bit of history behind it, something that's probably gone back at least maybe 100 years or so, to have a little bit of context. Or sometimes these places will have like ancient burial grounds, so we'll go further back. But that's how we'll generally do it, just by looking at counties that we haven't done as much and then pick it out from there, yeah.
Okay, so then you decide you're going to go, and I know I suggested to you before we started recording that my old boarding school would be an ideal haunt.
Yeah, it sounds great, yeah. One for the future,
and just as I said, that word just came there. It would be an ideal haunt. Yes. We use the word so different in a way that we used to use that in language. But so then you go through, figure out who's the owner, who's the one you need to ask permission from, and all the rest of it. And in order to conduct this, you're going to have to do it outside of what would be normal hours, because I know with Athlone in the castle, you had to go in at the end of the day when the castle was closing up, and you're going to operate in private.
Yes.
So that in itself can often be a challenge to get permission to do that kind of stuff.
Yes, it can be. We've probably been turned down a good few times as well, so we just got to keep going and ploughing on, and one of them will stick or one of them will say yes, and then off we go and we do our stuff. And we always we're as respectful as possible, just to like get out of the building when needs be, and just to don't mess up the place, don't be running around going crazy or anything like that. So we just investigations, we actually plan ahead of our investigations as well, so we have kind of a running order of what we're going to do in each room, so it's not necessarily unorganised. We'll have exactly what we're doing here, so then we'll leave at the right time. We won't stay overnight or
right. So again, so when we, as I was reading, as you got into Athlone and you're setting up and things calm down and you get into a calm state.
Yeah.
And you then start to initiate your communication with the paranormal. And that that must be a very tense time in one way, because you just don't know if anything's going to happen, and the excitement when something does.
Yeah, definitely. I find that bit really, really exciting, because you just don't know what's in store. I mean, there might not be. Sometimes we'll go to investigations and barely anything will happen. But for that, you're seeing what will come through. So it's all like an open book. So the message, whatever will come through, we're then just going to explore that more and delve in. So we do ask spirits to come forward with much respect to the spirit as well. Kind of use a bit of a psychological stance there as well, because we're just actually having a conversation, and we're not kind of beckoning them in, or we said, if you want to come in, come in. If you don't, it's up to you. So we kind of are welcoming in that regard, yeah.
Right.
And everything kicks off, or might not kick off, who knows.
What would have been the most, and I'm trying to figure what the right word is here, the most vibrant, I suppose.
Most vibrant place.
By that I mean that, you know, that I won't quite say it was Party City in that context.
It was off, the wall.
But this was bouncing off the walls in some ways.
Yeah. So, well, personally, I found the Strand in County Waterford, which is a hotel, to be hopping. Absolutely. That was mesmerising for me. We had the old phones in the hotel, which the hotel was closed for a couple of months. I think it was just, that was why we were in there. There was nobody in there to stay overnight and so. And the old phones were calling, like they started working, you know, in the kitchen, like they were broken. The guy from behind the bar came in and said, by the way, guys, the phone in the back room is ringing, but it's broken. So we go back into the back room, to the back kitchen, the broken phone, and pick up the phone, and all you can hear is just white noise at the other side. So put the phone down again, the phone rings again, my friend picks it up, white noise. So it ended up being the new phone next to it was calling that phone. And then someone else's phone on the team about half an hour later from an unknown number started calling. Then we had a dog barking that wasn't there in the place. So there was a lot of things going on at the one time. And we also heard there was EVPs there of someone looking for Jack the Pirate. They were looking for Jack the Pirate. And
okay, what's an EVP?
So EVP is electronic voice phenomena. So that generally happens when you can't really hear it while we're there, but afterwards we'll listen back on the footage and you can hear it clearly. You'll be able to hear these voices really clearly, or words so clearly of like sentences from different voices that were there with us, but we didn't know they were there at the time. And sometimes you'll realise that you're not getting anything, but then you will review the footage and all of a sudden it's just full sentences and you know the place is just full of activity in that way. But the Strand Inn for me was great with the phones, I have to say, yeah. Or Lougheed Castle in County Tipperary. All these castles, all these ruins in Ireland, which are fantastic, they're all hidden behind little fields, but you still have these little castles popping up now and again. And we went to Lougheed Castle. We were at the top of the castle. There was a couple of us up there, and then we heard footsteps all the way up, and we thought, oh no, we're going to be caught by the farmer, because we thought we'd chance our arm with this castle. We go up and we'll get something like it. Thought the local farmer was coming up to get us, and we were all huddled in the corner just waiting for this. And it got to the top of the stairs there, and then nobody arrived, and that was that was, even the energy just dropped. It was just like, whoa. Okay, I just wanted to face the wall. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do a little jumping around here. You've like the likes of Athlone, you're in there and you are set up, you go in, you carry in your equipment, you set up at like a laboratory.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Here you're telling me you're up at top of a building that you've snuck up there.
Yes, it was in the middle of nowhere.
So you really have no equipment, or you couldn't have anything much with you.
Yes, for those outside buildings, we just kind of bring the bare minimum, like a board. We might bring a scrying mirror to scry in the mirror. We might bring dowsing rods with us. which you hold, and they move to a particular area that you kind of go over to that direction by themselves, and then you go over and you investigate over that direction. So we don't bring as much scientific fit stuff with us when we're coming to the places which have no electricity in the vicinity. So we just have to, we're tuning in with our own senses.
No, the reason I'm really saying it is you're telling me here you're sitting up on the top of a roof in the middle of nowhere, and you hear steps.
Yes.
Yeah. Why, or I guess the question would be is, what would have caused the spirit in this situation to come up the stairs? Like, had you started an invocation or whatever the appropriate word would be to call them, that they were responding?
Yeah, it's an interesting one that I think we were doing a lot of separation previous, so we all separate the different part of the building, which is little tiny little cubby holes. It's a little castle, the big castle. It's not too big, but so I think some people were doing kind of meditation, that kind of thing, kind of like talking to spirits by themselves, different rooms. So I think that got everything together. I think that kind of opened up something for them to come up, but I'm not too sure what that was. It was just so bizarre for me. I'm still baffled about what that was. It was just brilliant, yeah. And
after did anything else happen then, or did they just go back downstairs?
I think they just went back downstairs, but some of us got the heebie-jeebies and got a little bit creeped out, and we don't generally get creeped out. Sometimes we do, but like it's very rare. Just the energy drops, and we were like, oh no, let's just time to go now, yeah.
Yeah. Oh. Now, what's interesting is that, you talk about bringing your scientific approach to the paranormal.
Yeah, that was beyond that, yeah.
Yeah, and the funny part of it, in one way, when you say that, is it's nearly a total contradiction in terms.
Yes, yeah.
Because the paranormal would be unscientific.
Yes.
And you're using scientific to
bring them together.
Yes, and to analyse and to understand and to put structure on the unstructured.
Exactly, yeah. For that one, it was just a bit too much. That's why I think we got a bit weirded out. Sometimes we won't say, for instance, we might hear a noise. We won't jump to the conclusion saying what that is. It could be a pipe. It could be it could be an animal. It could be something like that, or it could be down to the temperature, the EMF in the room, or something, or something scientifically that you could actually. There's an explanation for it. But for this one, it was clear as day. Steps walking. I think none of us had an explanation for that, and some of us would be like. We don't get too spooked out, but we were very spooked out. Yeah.
So then, has there been an incident or an occasion, an investigation where you have discovered something that was monumental, and that as a result of that, you were able to pass the information to somebody or someplace, and that it led to either a rewriting, I would say, of history, or a reinterpretation of something, but it was monumental in a way?
Monumental the way we have like Clononey Castle, but there's nothing that we haven't released in our book yet.
Yeah, I don't mean it that way, but I mean that it was something that the narrative previously would not have taken that into account, that it was unknown, so as that the previous historical narrative may have needed to be rewritten, edited.
Yeah, I can just... so there's what I'm trying to think now. We had Ballingarda House in Limerick, and it hasn't got rewritten or anything like that, but you have heard of stories of the Hellfire Club in Dublin, especially up in Dublin. There was another one in Limerick as well, which is, I think it's a kind of a little tourist thing at the moment, but we decided one time to go to Ballingarda House. It's one of those old kind of Edwardian, Victorian, old huge houses that were probably like, very like popular in the 1700s in Ireland, where you had like these Protestants taking over the land and they had massive houses hidden in the back. So this house, you check it out, it's fantastic. Ballingarda House, it's just in ruins at the moment, but it's just fantastic to look at even in photos. We were in there for the night, and we decided to do a few bits and pieces in regards to the Hellfire Club, which was nearby down the road, and realised that the Hellfire Club down the road was not the Hellfire Club, but we were getting all the answers on the board that this was the Hellfire Club. There's this old photo that it's I don't say popular enough, but it's of the Hellfire Club Ireland, and we found out that that photo was taken in that building. So I think they were just trying to hide a lot of secrets in regards to that, what was happening there, because there was a lot of I would say kind of not like
there was a lot of nefarious activities.
That was happening in that building. So we got a couple of dates, we got a couple of names, but we brought it somewhere. I know Anthony was telling us brought it to some newspaper in Limerick. Yeah. However, it hasn't got rewritten or anything like that. But we do find things that kind of are like, oh, that's a little different. And we do kind of try to discover in the background what's really going on. Yeah.
Have you ever come across a situation then either where somebody wanted you to carry a message?
Carry a message? Yeah, there's been messages through, but not really. I have to say, like, that's something that we actually haven't come across yet, where somebody's actually asked us to carry a message to somebody else. But that would be interesting. It's like The Sixth Sense. Remember that? Like, yeah. Remember that movie? Yeah, I would love that though. That'd be great. But it'd be kind of a bit bizarre, I think, popping up and telling somebody, by the way, your dead granny or your mother wants to let you know.
I know. I chatted with them. It wasn't Liz Nugent, but I'll come back to it. Where it was fascinating story fiction, where the undertakers could talk to the corpse for a period of time, and it was fiction, brilliant. Set in and around Anne Griffin. Anne Griffin wrote her second book, and it was about an undertaker family who, for a period after somebody died, they were still able to communicate with. They had a gift, and they would be wanting to carry messages to let the family know that.
Yeah, that'd be so interesting, though.
That was fiction.
Yeah, but you never know. I think it's just like amazing. Yeah, imagine doing that. Like,
so then, aside, you mentioned the castle there, or out in the farm where was spooked, or you were spooked. This time of the year around Halloween, are there any? Is there a calendar? By that I mean, just is it prone around this time of the year that there may be greater activity, or at the various points of be it the solstice or the equinox or anything like that? Are there times that activity is more intense?
I do sort of agree with the Halloween concept, and in a way, the way I believe it as well, I think there's a lot of background history to that, because people are kind of honed in on it as well. I think that it would open up a lot more. I don't necessarily know the ins and outs of when specific activity will happen at a specific place, because in regards to locations or haunted, spooky buildings and castles, I think the particular time of the year where things happen is a particular time of where an event has happened there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Rather than being Halloween.
And do you then, given the intensity, as you said, that because there's more of an awareness around Halloween and people are, would you be more attuned or more alert at particular times, consequently yourself?
I think I see every day as an opportunity for things to happen. Yeah. Like I am more heightened at Halloween just because it's everywhere, and there's so many decorations about, and people are just different spooky stories happening. But I honestly think that the most spooky things that could happen in the middle of the day in the month of May, for instance, or June, for that matter.
Right. So while let's get specific on the book now and just cover off some of the wonderful places that are covered, because you've been around the country. There's Dublin, Balnamuck, Rathcroghan, Athlone, Gort, Kilbaha. That's Loop Head, isn't it? You were down in Kilbaha for Loop. Yeah, I was there last year.
Very good.
Limerick, Tarbert was there. Talk to the people that operate the jail.
Oh yeah, you were down there in the jail.
I didn't get in because I was in Kilrush at the time, and I actually met the people and I talked to them, and we chatted and interviewed them. Blennerville, I'm familiar with Blennerville, and Killarney, Cork and Blarney, and Clononey in the Midlands. So that's what you're covering in Drowned Out Voices. Yes, yeah. So there's a range there, because you talk about the Castleknock, and that's going back to 1690 there, that term. The Tarbert jail would be more recent, and by more recent, we're still talking 100, 150, 200 years. Yes. There's a lot of different cells as well in there. You know, a lot of spooky cells which are still pretty much intact. Yeah. So going into somewhere like that must have been interesting. And what did you connect with? It's kind of a little bit of a dark energy I found in there. We did have like explosions, the sound of explosion, gunfire that was popping up. There's nothing around there. That wasn't even Halloween around that time. There wasn't anything in the vicinity. I was there, and what I thought I saw was like these dark kind of shadows that, I don't know if my mind was playing tricks on me or anything like that, but I did see these kind of dark shadows, around there. But sometimes if you're in the dark for so long, there are things like happening. In Tarbert Jail, there was just a few different shrieks, a few different calls, a few different bits and pieces. Nothing as astounding as you would see in a horror movie or anything like that. But it was spooky. I did find a very dark energy there. Yeah. And somewhere like Rathcruachan, my understanding that would have been outdoors. Yes, down the cave. So no location is, we don't surpass any. We basically turn into cave explorers as well. So down into the cave we go, which how can I pronounce it? Auganacht Cave is the word for that, or Auganacht Cave, Rathcruachan, as well. The home of the Morrigan. Which is, the Morrigan is a crow, a shape-shifting crow. It's a myth. And so we go down there. There's whistles, there's voices. On the manifestation board, they said there was a poltergeist as well showing up. And we were using shadows, put out shadow pieces of like wolves. And we went very spiritual with this one. So, it's away from the scientific one with this. We had earphones on. We did reverse speech as well. We get an old Nintendo box. We record our voices into it, and then we reverse it. So it reverses the speech, and we record it, see if anything is picked up. We got a few voices with that. We had an elemental spirit, a shape-shifting spirit as well. But that cave was creepy. If you're afraid of tight spaces, I wouldn't go down. But if you have put a hard hat on it. Yeah, based on what you're telling me, this tight space is the least of the things to be afraid of. Yeah. But why would you reverse your voice? Just to see if any spirits or entities would be more inclined to, be attached to that. And it just kind of gives it a bit of a spooky vibe as well. And to see if anything pops up, or if you can hear anything in the camera. We're trying everything. Sometimes we just throw it all at the wall, and we'll see what we can do. And has a reversed voice ever yielded any results? Not as much as just talking regularly. Okay. No. Okay. Right. Yeah. So, Sinead, it is fascinating, and it's fabulous to have a chat with you. Do any of your friends kind of get spooked around you? Previously they have done. Yeah, they have done in the past. They'd be more intrigued than anything else. Right. Otherwise, they don't really get spooked. No. None of them have asked to come along on a camping night with you. One or two maybe in the past, but not necessarily. They wouldn't be as inquisitive as I would be, I suppose. Some of them would be a little bit freaked out, I suppose. It's the regular thing that happens with most people. So then, while we've been talking about going to historic places or older places and picking up the vibes there, would you then pick up vibes from people, live people, normal, usual people? Regular folk. Regular folks. That you can see with your own eyes. Yeah, well, I would be quite an intuitive person anyway. I would quite have a lot of empathy and a lot of intuition, so I can kind of pick up
different people's personalities quite quickly.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, like, you know, like that's more of, I definitely pick up vibes quickly from people.
Fantastic. Sinead, we're going to wrap up.
Thanks very much.
And in wrapping up, we want to direct people, if they would like to get their hands on the book or any of your previous work. You do have a website, and it's GhostÉire.net.
Yep.
That's GhostEire.net, and you can get all the information on the team out there. I presume you're out there on social media.
Yeah, we are. So we have a Facebook page. We're quite active on that. So we have GhostÉire. There, you GHOST and E Father, IRE, but just put that in. We have a Halloween show coming up this Sunday, and that is for 5 hours. We're interviewing a couple of paranormal teams around Ireland. And also we have an Instagram page, GhostÉire Paranormal. We're on there. And we're also on GhostÉire Paranormal Team for Twitter as well.
Fantastic.
So there are numerous ones.
And if anyone wants to get their hands on the book, they can go onto your website and order through there.
Yes, through the website, GhostÉire.net. Also, you can get it through the manuscript publisher as well. It's manuscript publisher,
Indeed.
It's called Round Out Voices, Yes.
Sinead Houlihan, it's been fun chatting with you. Thanks,
Austin. It's been great. Thank you. It's been enjoyed. Thanks very much.